We don't.
Yeah.
What we really do have to respond to this, whether it's the spring or not, we got to respond to this.
Sarah brought up the idea about whether we choose location first or the issue first, and then we had the offer of Sukasa that if we, just off the top of my head, this idea is that if we accept Sukasa's invitation for hospitality and be working on this, then there's a whole lot of things to do in Chicago, where we have not been yet.
Yes.
If that falls through, I mean, one suggestion has been the Boeing headquarters, people resisting there, where surely whatever is going on in the newspaper that day would be a reason to go to the federal building. There's Elton had an idea. We were talking about the Israeli consulate, and again, that could depend on what in the newspaper that day as well. So that's an idea.
A couple things. Forgive me because I came late. I thought the meeting was supposed to be in there where I think it was initially scheduled. Get it straight. This is a dorm at this university?
It's more than a dorm because it's obviously housing some educational components, the military educational component.
Wow, it's actually, the building itself is directly in the In terms of issues regarding Chicago, I haven't been in Chicago in a little while now, for several months, but the issue that doesn't get a great deal of attention, and there are some really fine people working on it, is the torture in the Chicago prison. Yeah, the police torture and John Burge. I don't know where that's at. I know it was at a sort of critical point when I left Chicago a couple of months ago. But in terms of a presence and a focus, there's a very fine group, the Clint Taylor's group, the PLO, the People's Law Organization, People's Law Office. Just to add to a possible list of things to do.
Talk a little bit more about that. What is the
when Daley was before Daley was the mayor of Chicago, Daley was the state's attorney of Chicago, and at that time there was a guy who returned from Vietnam, and in Vietnam, very likely in Vietnam, he had learned to torture. He moved very quickly up the ranks of the Chicago Police Department, and for years, for 20 years, sort of systematically tortured primarily black gang members, and it's infected the entire judicial system in Chicago. Because Daley said nothing as the state's attorney. It's been covered up for all these years, so you have all these judges who are now in the appellate courts or in the court system in Chicago, who themselves are tainted by their own suppression of the fact that they knew, and the state's attorneys knew, and a fair portion of the police department knew that they were torturing people, serious torture, cattle prods, electroshock to prisoners, in addition to beatings and anal penetration with police sticks, and a routine sort of process on the part of Burge that ran into the 1990s. And then he retired, and there's a question of whether or not you go after John Burge or you go after the entire system. But there's a lot of very, very good information on it. Like I said, Clint Taylor and that law office comes out of during the sort of Vietnam era, civil rights era. They were the first person they defended was the Black Panther in Chicago, forgetting his name, Fred Hampton. And then ultimately, when Hampton was killed, they did the civil suit, and they won the civil suit. So it's very interesting for the law office. And it remains and they have kept it a public issue. So it does, in a certain way, it haunts Mayor Daley to this day.
Any more ideas related to Chicago? Chicago as a location?
I don't know if there's any resistance around it. I recall Jeremy Cahill talking about Triple Canopy having their headquarters there in Chicago as well, if we want to go on the military contractors.
Well, and I don't know how this relates to it, but in Chicago, it looks like there could be either a lot